put an agenda out about the kind of the follow-ons from each Zoom. The last one we did on structures. This one we get asked about a lot, being in or on the business. A lot of people get dragged back into their business. So the points we've got to cover today, and just we'll kick off by just saying, look, what would be really good if we can have some driving questions and some Q&A at the end of this. So should you step away from billing? We're going to talk about that. What's the model of your business in terms of if you're going to step away, what's your model? How are you going to run that? Is it a leap of faith to go in and on the business, and when's the right time? Delegation over execution. If you're not executing yourself, then you're delegating, you're getting other people to do it. We'll have a conversation about consistency and communication, because if you're going to be on the business, that communication line needs to be thorough, and it needs to be something that everybody knows how to talk up and down the chain on. And in those growing pains, those structures, when you get to different sizes of being on the business, maybe what that structure looks like. So, Gary and I will have a lot to say on this as always. Even though we had kind of different paths, Gary came in, he calls himself an entrepreneur, but essentially he got on the business quite quickly and grew that business, as we know, to a massive position. In terms of the first businesses that I started for somebody else and then for myself, both times I went on the business from day one, and they both grew exceptionally fast. And so we come from, I think, and Gary might say something different, but I think we both come from a position that the quicker you're on the business, the quicker your business will grow. And should you step away from billing, obviously that depends on your situation in terms of finances, where you are. But I think from day one, that needs to be in your plan. You need to know what the minimum requirement is for you to step away from your business, because within recruitment, you never have a position within the hierarchical structures, or however you're structured your business, where you're not selling. Whether you're selling internally, you're selling the blue sky dream, whether you're selling to clients at a higher level because you're offering gravitas to go to the meetings, you're always selling. But some of it's scalable and some of it's not. You are only capable of doing X amount of business maximum, or you and your business partner. How are you going to grow that business? When's the right time to do that? If you're going to grow your business, you're going to get on your business. What's your model? Are you going to bring in big clients, do the BD, take it to 180? Is it just going to be, we're going to start off with 360 consultants, see where we get to, see what we get traction with, open up on SOW, we're going to do consultancy, we're going to do TAS. If you're going to be on the business, you need to be able to direct the business. So you need to understand your business model. And I'm sure there's going to be some questions around, what's the right business model, but it's not necessarily one business model works for everybody. It's the right business model for you, your makeup, your team, and the vertical and geographies that you work in at that point in time. Brushing over to leap to get, is it a leap of faith to be on or in or on the business? Of course it is, but you're taking faith in terms of your ability to manage larger teams, to scale a business. If you haven't got that know-how, this is what the RDLC is for. You've got a lot of people in here who've scaled businesses, done really, really well. They've gone for the 5s, 10s, 15s, 20s, 50s, 100s. You've got Gary and I, you've got advisors in Gary that can come and sit on your board and give you that direction as well. So it is a leap of faith, but when you're with the RDLC, the way we look at it, it's a leap of faith, but you've got a couple of 100 people holding your hand while you do it. And we're going to make sure that you get across that gap. Delegation over execution. This can be the hardest one for people like us. Sometimes you just do a job because it's easier to do it than it is to tell somebody else how to do it. But you've got to get to a point where you're delegating the right roles to the right people. And that comes back to what's your structure, what's your model, right? So we're going to talk a bit about that. I'm sure Gary's going to talk about how, he grew a business, exponentially in terms of the delegation of getting the right people to the right places quickly. And that will roll onto your consistency and communication. If everybody's rowing in the same direction, if everybody's trying to hit the same goal, you're a very efficient business, and therefore you're not going to burn as much cash. You can reinvest that money into the business. You can grow that business quicker. And then we'll have some conversations about growing pains, because structures change. You need to be malleable. You need to be agile. Your markets may change. Your offering may change. Your service, your products may change in just to reflect the opportunities that are there at that point in time. So they're the points that we'd like to go over and get some questions on. They're very, very basic, but they're things that I think everybody's interested in hearing about. Gary, do you want to kick off by adding to any of those?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I'd love today to talk about passing over non-core activities to people that you can trust, be it that you're going to outsource it, or I like to refer to it as the Emma effect. So she was employee number 4 or 5, came in as a resourcer, pretty much stopped that almost overnight, and man-to-man me for the last 40 odd years. So she basically defines my non-negotiable activity. So if we're looking at putting a marketing plan together, she will remind me with at least 2 months to go that I need to start building out my content for the next 6 months, right? So she basically has the control over me. Also, when we got to 6 heads, I came off the tools and never did a piece of work ever again. And it was having that plan that I agreed with everybody in the business. If you get to managing 6 heads and you're all hitting the basic requirement, so minimum level of expected performance, be it it's 12 grand or 15 grand or a deal and a half, whichever market we're in. So it could be 30 in the US. That being the case, you go off the tools and then you're responsible for growing the business. And you have definitive goals that you're trying to go at, and having people around you that you can do this stuff with. I loved David Stone when he said he wants to hire people who are good enough to do 5 days working for him to have that appetite for people to do shorter working weeks. I don't think there's one recruitment manager, so a business manager, an RBL, who isn't good enough to do 5 days working for. So effectively, I've just given you all back 20% of your work to actually do things on the business. You just have to be massively disciplined and stop being the major breadwinner as quickly as you possibly can, and be a puppet master, sharing your infinite wisdom and making sure people do it your way. So if you get 5 people who all are kind of maverick in your business, you'll never find the time for you to go and do the things that you really need to do or want to do for your business. If you get 5 people working exactly the same way, there's a massive chance you can scale that business so much faster and easier. So you define your working process, and that's the process that you love. And if somebody comes up with a great idea, then you adapt the process, but every fucker does it. So that's really important. The other thing was when we do meetings like this, or when we do lunch clubs, everyone writes copious amounts of notes. I know bloody well that very few times that all of the actions that you really love actually make it to the business. There's something there that just stops you. It might look like it's a bit of hard work, or you haven't got the time, or you haven't got the inclination. So making sure that you have the right support infrastructure around you where people can help you with some of these tasks. For example, if I had to do an Excel spreadsheet to work out the commission pay run for my temp team, but that's going to take me 4.5 months, and it's still going to be shit and it's still going to be wrong. And Emma could do it in about 20 minutes and be perfect. So making sure that you grow into the support infrastructure that you have. And the last thing I just wanted to say was Emma fairly frequently, because I write lists of stuff and I write lists of lists. She would very frequently talk to me about, all right, here we go. And urgent, important, not important, important, not urgent, not important, not urgent. And she'd go through the list and she'd go, fuck's gone. That's been on the list now 3 times. Either do it or I'm taking it off your list. What are you going to do about it? What's your commitment? And she holds me accountable to do stuff. So having someone to beast you means you'll get so much more work done, and you won't ever get tied up in knots. And you just have to have these non-negotiables that you get stuff done, and your business will go leaps and bounds, leaps and bounds, leaps and bounds. So that's more sort of practical, operational stuff to go along with Dean's theory, potentially.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Just going over what you were saying about being a major breadwinner, doing all the work, the amount of businesses that we've seen that start up, and you have a conversation with someone. I'm starting a new recruitment business. I've got another person I'm bringing on board, but I've been really busy doing the website. I've been really busy doing this. I've been really busy being busy. These are things you need to outsource straight away. And I think when you want to start a business, you have to plan to get off the tools. When I did my first business, I hired people day one and put 4 people in an office. Used all my money, every penny I had, putting it in there, just making sure that I could pay my mortgage, use all my savings, and get these people up to speed. And I had to do it, right? I had to do it. If I didn't do it, I was going to fail, but I was going to go out on my shield. I was going to make it happen. Yes, I've done a tiny bit of billing at one point, completely out of the sector that I was meant to be in, just to bring in some cash, but I drove it. And as soon as I got any money, I've got more people on board and more people on board and more people on board, you know, and that as I've talked about many times, there's a business that ended up at 40 odd within 2.5 years. The first business in about 15 months ended up at 40 odd. And that's just the growth aspect of it. The biggest thing I see as an inhibitor to a lot of the businesses, kind of in terms of average across the recruitment sector, and the average is 10 people or less, is they've been doing it for a period of time. They've earned good money. It's quite nice. They can drop the kids off at school in the morning. They can come in late if they're going to go to the gym. But you have a conversation with them. Do you want to grow your business to be huge? Do you want to make loads of money? Do you want to sell it? All these things that we kind of think we want. But does that mean, like, you've got to take a step back in lifestyle? You've got to put that money back into the business. You've got to do all these things. You've got to hire these people that you don't know that are going to work for you. And actually, you can't go on holiday because you put that money back into the business and they're not performing. How are you going to react to that? Doing it at the beginning when you've got the momentum and you've got the energy and you're really buzzing to do it gives you what you want. It gives you run rate. Doing it after you've plateaued and you're doing okay, or you may be doing some incrementals, and then you've got to put that money back in and you actually got to cut back on your own living style, is so much harder to do. And not many, in my experience across the RDLC and outside of it, have I seen manage to do that, to take the step back in their lifestyle and then pump that money back in. Yes, some have done it when they've had disasters in their business and things have gone wrong and they've had to do it. But actually, once you get comfortable, it's really bloody difficult, right? And that's the thing. Make sure you're uncomfortable every day, that you are growing and putting that money back in. So that's all. I really want to add to that. I'd like to push it out. I'd like a bit more Q&A than we've had in a couple of the Zooms. Has anybody got any questions? If they want to speak, they can put it in the chat, or just our mic and hit us with it.
Hey Dean, how are you? This is Kish.
I'm good. You?
Yeah, good. Just a quick question. You know, we've been, as you say, just kind of hold back to your lifestyle and just continue growing the business. When do you actually draw a line and decide, okay, fine, it is time now to enjoy some of it? Because I think we just struggle to find a balance now. I
mean, that depends on your appetite for it a lot of the time. If you've got 50 people, then why not 60, 70, 80? Sometimes I've seen businesses where they get to 100 people and they're actually less profitable than they were at 30 or 40 people. So you've got to do it right and do it in the right way. But there's a point in time where you get to step away totally, but still either de-risk by being able to leverage some money in some form of exit, or just in terms of taking some money against the business and giving you some of that financial freedom, just in case the world goes pop in 5-10 years time. Yeah. But also then you grow that succession plan. You get to work exactly how you want it to work because it runs without you. I think when it runs without you, you're still adding that kind of those gems, those little pearls of wisdom from time to time. But that's really when you can step away and enjoy it, because you can dip in to get your buzz and your kick from doing the business, the stuff you like as an entrepreneur. But you can do all the other shit that you want to do as well. And you've got the money to do it. And you're financially stable into the future, not just right at this moment in time. So it really depends on your appetite. We take some of the businesses that sold over the last few years. You take Faden, and Gary knows this as well. Many times we would speak to Adam Buck at different things, and he hated his business. He didn't want to be there anymore. Now it's right for him to go and enjoy himself. And actually, when you look at how that deal was structured and the things that happened within it, I think if he really wanted to be there, he could have probably not taken the original debt deal and grown it out himself, made twice as much money. He still made a lot of money. No one's going to cry for him. He's done really well, and he's a good operator. But he knew when his time had come. There are those that know when their time has come. Darren Rymel stepped away from Opus, but that's the right timing for him. So sometimes you know when it's the right time to step away. If you're still, even though you've got 50 people, if you're still integral to the business on every heartbeat and every step of the way, then the time isn't right. The time's right where you could take 6 months off and the business will still generate, still grow, and you've got a really good team in place. And that's how I would see it. What do you think, Gary?
Well, I'll put my finger up there. We used to have loads of fun with Bill Bottrell. So if we can convince Bill to buy a new kitchen, we all took our same money out pari passu. So although he kept buying new houses, we kept saying his kitchens were shit, so we could take more money out. Right. So one of the most important things that we ever learned, every year I was at S3 for the 17 odd years I was there, I earned more money every year. Now, it didn't matter if it was recession or not, we earned more money every year. We used to take 50% of the business out every year. We retained 50% of our profits, which gave us scope and scale for growth. We had hiring triggers to make sure when we were growing profitably. So it was no vanity hires. We weren't trying to hit a number. It was all, how many heads can you have by remaining as profitable as possible? And then we just basically just made sure that everyone actually was earning an absolute fortune, because that's what motivated us to keep working. So if you've got loads of money in the bank, well, what's a waste? I mean, drive a fucking car, get a swimming pool, just, buy a helicopter. Just have some fucking fun with it. We work really hard. So, but as long as it's retaining 50% of the profit, smash it up and live the dream. And then people, that's aspirational. And Ross is having a good time there. Yeah. You already got paid out once, sweetheart. But it's about having a really good time. The recruitment is all about having the best of times. So please don't just keep money in the bank. What a fucking waste.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The amount of times people have said, how much do you keep in? Do I keep 6 months salary? If you're sitting on loads of cash in the balance sheet, you will take your foot off the gas, because we'll be all right this month. It's not about that. And as Gary said, it goes backwards. We're in a high inflationary market at the moment. You're going to lose 20% of your money. The buying power's gone back. You might as well put it into assets you want or assets you enjoy if you can't use it to replenish your business. And again, see a lot of people say, well, I'm going to take out some money, put it into property, I'm going to take out 200 grand. Well, you might get 6 or 8 new consultants for that. And they might put this million to your bottom line over a period of time in terms of your EBIT when you sell your business. So you've taken out 200 grand to get a property that might appreciate to 275 or whatever it might be, but they've put a million EBIT to your bottom line. That's worth 5 million quid to you, right? Yeah. So if you can put that money back in, I think what people need to understand about money is money's useless if you can't spend it. It just has an energy, right? And that energy is getting less and less in an inflationary environment. So you've got to put it to use. You've got to put it to work. And if you can't put it to work in terms of return on investment, as Gary said, do something that you enjoy. With it, as long as you've got the cash flow to run your business.
I'm glad you resurrected that, because I thought you were fucking boring then. I remember when Sudal phoned me up and goes, did you earn a winner this year? Which was 100 grand. And then he's phoned me out and said, did you pay a winner in tax this year? It's like, yeah, he goes. And it was 2 years later, he goes, did you earn a winner? It's like, that's when we started earning £1 million a year. So we were earning £1 million a year, and still that was with, that's 6 of us at the top of it, and still retaining half our profits. And I got to say, it was fucking brilliant. So it was really. I remember watching an FA Cup final with Dan and Todd, and all the players ran out. And Toddy said, "Wouldn't you like to be a professional footballer?" I went, "Couldn't afford the pay cut." I mean, things are different now, but back in the days, we were looking at everybody in Wembley and think we are richer than the 0.0001% of everyone here, and that was just brilliant. So just enjoy it. Fuck it.
I bet you never told them though.
No, I told fucking everyone.
Dean, quick question for you. We're literally going through this at the moment. Gary's literally dragging us by the ears through the process. Quick question in terms of, obviously, stepping back. You've gone through this. In your experience, what's more important to get in first? Because you've got to do all of it. I appreciate that, but do you put the systems in first or the people in first?
Systems can work around people. You know what? When you're going from in to on, your business isn't going to be massive, right? Because you to get massive, you've got to be on. But you're going to put the people in. The people are going to generate the most efficient way of doing things, because you're going to turn things up and down, and you're going to map those operating procedures, and you're just going to refine them, and then the structures go in around them. If you try and get people to bend to structures that aren't right for what you're doing, because our structures change all the time. I mean, there's a kind of a structural kind of definition to what we do as recruiters, but the processes, in each business might be slightly different for their market, their verticals, their geography, that type of stuff. whether they're 180, 120, 360, whatever they're doing, whether they're doing meetups, whether they're doing SOW, some of those processes are going to be different. So it's getting your business model, making sure you've got the right people to deliver on that business model. You'll just actually delivery means you've got process. Then you need to map those processes and refine those processes to be as efficient as possible.
Cool, thank you.
No problem. So who's this? Simon Brown. I feel like one of my blockers is processes being documented well enough as they're not. How important is process mapping when it comes to stepping off? We may have just answered that, Simon, but process mapping for the purpose of just process mapping is useless. Mapping your processes is so you can understand where the bottlenecks are, what's slowing you down, what hasn't been as effective as you wanted it to be, so that you can change it. It's a bit like, KPIs. So your KPIs are there, so you know whether you're up or down, whether your run rate's right, whether you're hitting the right markers to get the right outcomes. And your process mapping is exactly the same, because your processes will change as you get bigger, but you need to understand what they are and not leave them to chance, because you can be leaking the bucket somewhere and not really know because you're not looking for it. Was there anything, Simon, was there anything else to that as well? Do you want to add in your question?
No, to be honest, Joe, I think it was before, his question bled into that in some respects anyway. So yeah, it's just, I think it's thinking about process when adding new people in a sense of making sure they know what good looks like, and you can replicate quicker. Whereas at the minute, leading by example is the approach to growth of people. So if I do it, then I'm leading by it, then you copy it, as opposed to this is what it looks like.
It's a bit that's mapping your process, because you're defining the process, because you're cutting the path. But Gary says it, I say it, that when you get to scale, or you want to scale, you've got to kind of industrialize those processes so that they're resilient enough, right? So that people can come on and are going to stand the load testing in terms of what they need to do. Yeah. They're repeatable, because that's memory muscle. We're going to go over and we're going to do this stuff, but we're going to put our own flavor about it. And then it's replicable. So if you're going to open up other offices, look at S3, it picked up people who were doing well there and stuck them around there and stuck them over there. And they continue to do well because the process was right. And that's what you've got to define right at the beginning. It's never perfect day one, but you've got to get that done. And that's where, again, we will both say, rather than hiring 1s and 2s, if you can get 3s and 4s or 6s and 8s, then you get them on because they learn from each other. And, it's just like anything. If you've got a lot of kids together and they're working a certain way, they all learn quicker than if it's just one and then another one and then another one, because you repeat the process. Oh, Richard, you're on mute, please. No, who was that then? Sound like he's in the toilet there, having a flush. Gary, do you want to add anything to that?
Maybe it's because I'm a contract guy deep down. I'd always say get your basic process right, because if you get your process wrong on contracts, you lose money. So if you're a perm rich business, then you can rely on getting people in, and you can do a buddy system to get everybody to the right and required level. If you're a contract business, you need to make sure you do your checks and balances all the way down the line. And then I like putting QA in every level these days to make sure that people don't work shit jobs independently. So there has to be, vacancy comes in, you get it signed off by the director, or he pushes you back to sell up in terms of a product. At that point, to trigger working with your CRM, because you've already paid for those CVs, pass it to your remote team, put a time frame on that, so be it's 48 hours to do outbound activity before you move on to the next job. Because again, people on perm will overwork really shit jobs as opposed to finding a really good one. So you have to put some governance behind these things. So if you've got some basic rules of engagement, I think it works really, really well. You are relying on having really strong bidding managers who basically get to that point where they tell you to fuck off. I always think about the idea of growing a business is that you come up with this creative, this creative environment whereby you know what is best. So most people in this Zoom today are the best salespeople within their business, bar none. So we need to get what's in your head and what's in your heart and what's in your energy levels into the business. Now that you just replicate until such time as you've got too many people for you to pass that message on, and then you champion 3 or 4 other people who've got that process, and then they do that for you. And that releases you the time to do the things that you want to do. Now, does it mean that you have to have all of this documented, like an ISO 9002? Bullshit, does it? Because that adds no fucking value at all. But what it does mean, if someone's run over by a bus and they've been working on something for a day, everyone knows what should have happened by then and what has to happen next. And there should be a time. So on contract at S3, you had 2 hours to fill a job. End. So if you could do what Dean was brilliant at, which is free working interview or a trial startup, you do it on the first phone call. And then we just make up the name of a candidate and go and find someone who looked remotely similar to this fucking person that we've magicked up. We'd all work together on that. So, and that's back in the days when it was very, very cool to be a salesperson. So I do think having a process, which is your magic formula, is really right. And then having champions who follow your vision for the business all the way forward. And they're the ones that you back to find time. But again, with all of these things, the value of what marketing is doing for the businesses I'm working with at the moment is fucking sick. But no one's putting the right time to get the right quantity and quality. It's just a bit half-assed because either the people are running against a brick wall, it's not coming, it's not in their nature and they don't kind of get it, or they haven't got the right infrastructure or not putting the right time into it. If you can find a way to put the right time and effort into it, or to have a champion to do that for you, that you govern, then it'll work for you. So I love a KPI to do once a month to actually see where people are in terms of their performances. I wouldn't manage anybody on the shop floor with a KPI ever again. I'd manage them on 2-hour sprints. So what would I do next if I was sat on your desk, Ross? What would I do next? And if then you get to know that psyche, at the end of the month, we look at your conversion rates. And if the conversion rates are good, your activity is good, I know you're going to make money. That's a better way of doing it and getting that into the business. But again, it's finding time to look at the raw data to understand what good looks like and express it to people in a language that they get excited about. So rather than say, if everyone works brilliantly this year, we'll do 3 million quid EBIT, because no one gives a flying fuck about that apart from you and your wife. Well, actually, probably just you. She's just interested in getting the new Range Rover. But if you say, if everybody does what I ask them to do, everybody in this business learn 100 grand. Now that is different. People will work for that. And it's just a question of trying to get some of these messages out. But again, that takes time to do stuff like that. That's working on the business, not in it.
So another quick question, guys, just following on from that. If it is the people side of things, what's your views on hiring directly versus outsourcing the different pieces?
My view is it's horses for courses. I think a lot of people are outsourcing because they can't get the talent, like generally, and that's we know it's a talent-driven market at the moment. I've got outsourced people, I've got internal people. It is easier, I think, with internal because it's very tactile. You're there, you're on it. You can be quickly to say, right, say this, do this, and the processes are easy to push and make work internally. If you're going outsource, you do need to have those processes mapped fairly well because you're not going to be there every day. You're going to have them kind of working as one of your members of staff, but then they've got nobody to copy. You might go out there, spend a week with them, do some training. One of my team's just been out doing some training for the second time with the people out there, and each time they get better, but there's still stuff that's lost in translation, right? And you need to get your processes down. I think when you're going to go outsourcing, like anything, I think if you're outsourcing anything to anybody, you've got to know what you want, what you expect, and you need to lay it out as in what that process will be. You can't expect them to have the domain knowledge or just even the naturalization of the environment you work in being from another country. That'd be my opinion anyway.
Yeah. To be fair, I meant services and things as well. So we've talked about marketing, we've talked about IT system infrastructure, that sort of stuff.
You can't afford the skills that you get from outsourcing internally. And you need to have a certain level of scale, I think, before some of those services you bring in-house. And some of them, you know, I look at these days, it's so much better than it used to be. You know, you're outsourcing. You could outsource lots of stuff for a long period of time. You could be 100 heads, 200 heads, and still outsource. It's not an issue because you just pay for more staff somewhere else. But the nice thing is, a bit like having a contractor or a temp worker, you haven't got employment liabilities. You know, you haven't got all the stuff that comes with human nature and, you know, time off and whatever else. You've got a service and they need to provide you with that service. So it's consistent and you've got continuity in service. So they have to take on more staff internally, but that's their liability, not yours. So the only other thing sometimes to think about those things is cheapy if you're bringing stuff in-house. But I think you can be any scale these days as long as you've got the right outsourcer. But initially, I would always say outsource because you're just going to get a better caliber of individual than you could probably afford yourself.
And you're learning core skills on somebody else's ticket. So you understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, what value is, what the price you're paying for that, and the quality and quantity of output that you're getting. And once you understand what good looks like, you basically buy someone internally, and then you just give them, that's what we're after. And they've got a roadmap. Only have one person do one job, right? It's really, really, really important because I used to get these blended roles and I never got the value from it because people do the things that they like. And if I had someone who had an ops background, the last thing I'd do is get them managing from hire to retire, right? I wouldn't even think to do that. I would ask them to be 100% responsible for compliance across all countries and all areas. And that's what I had Mark Keith doing. I would make sure that they were keeping abreast of any HR related issues across the countries that I trade in to make sure that the right information was given to my managers. I would make sure that they were being compliant across all of our technology. So anything GDPR in different countries, any financial issues that we had. So I would make them accountable for the operational excellence of running the business. And that would be great. Also, if I was trying to run a marketing department, I'd only need one manager. And the rest of it, I'd have people that they dictate to. So my marketing manager would be based with me at HQ. I'd work with them on strategy. And then I'd expect them to do the rollout across the different regions. I wouldn't have multiple managers. The interesting part of this is just know your starting point, right? So I've done this thing called baseline. So what does it cost you to get a vacancy? What does it cost you to get a candidate? Based on your current cost per desk, what is your average net fee income per recruiter per region? So if you're now going to spend an extra $6,000 a month per office or 10 grand a month per office, what does that actually mean in terms of average net fee income? So by giving you better marketing, by taking away some of the compliance issues, by helping govern some of this stuff that, you know, Mark Heath had my absolute, I had his back. So if Mark Heath told one of my managers or directors, here's a contract, there are 5 things on this that are questionable and there are 2 no-nos. And that manager or director is screaming at me saying, this is the biggest opportunity we've ever had. Back off, Gary. I said, no, not a chance. Mark Heath runs the roost, right? Literally, if Mark says no, it's an absolute definitive fucking no. So I manage no risk. So Mark was a very senior member of our team. And that's what gave us that growth. It took away the pressures from people. And it instantly took us from doing 2 a month on average to the average getting to 3s and 4s because of the investment we were making. So if it costs you an extra 10 grand per office, but everyone's doing an extra half a deal, which is 7.5 grand times 10 people, 75 grand versus 10 grand, right? It just makes perfect sense. And then I would also make sure that I'm talking with my finance people pretty much, I nearly said every hour, but probably every couple of days about planning, cash forecasting, what's going on, debtor days, anything I can do. And then, so that's when you're running a business, you know, you're becoming much more commercially attuned to running your business. as opposed to running around doing ones and twos in terms of deals. So if you want to get to 50, you've got to grow into the business that you want to become, and have an army of suppliers around you and partners. I must have said this a few times. When we hired Ian Collett straight out of Price Waterhouse, he walked in on the first day, he met us and said, I work with really big corporations, right? I think we were 250 odd people at the time. He goes, this isn't a big enough train set for me. Can you grow a bit, please? So I get excited. What a cheeky shit. But he basically set us up as a business that we wanted to become. And by trying to follow that trajectory and become that business, it was just a massive game changer. So we got the best lawyers we could afford, the best advisors we could afford, the best marketing people we could afford, and we had to grow into them. And we were giving them an opportunity. So I spent my time just spinning those boats, and then try and take ideas down to the business, and then just govern what was, we create monsters, don't we, in recruitment, just try and have some way where we could just shape those monsters. But the issue is, it's lovely having the debate with 50, 100-man businesses. You'll never, ever, ever get there if you still spend 5 days a week, 4 days a week, even 3 days a week, just being a boot cleaner for your superstar recruiters, trying to throw them a penalty here and there. Get out there and just grow your business, and just think about what is. Close your eyes, picture yourself in 2 years' time. What does that business look like? And then make it happen. And think of all the moving parts to make that happen. And you can do this every 6 months, so you never get tired, it never gets old, and you just go for it and go for it and go for it and go for it. And people get fucking exhausted by your ambition and your energy, and they just try harder to keep up with you. And if they don't keep up, sack them. Divide their job by 2, and get 2 other people to do it. And that's the ambition, and people try really hard. Sorry, Dean, that's a bit sack them all.
So we'll go back to that. So yeah, hire an ops person.
Yeah, sorry.
As we were saying. So yeah, I think with Gary, Gary's obviously put a lot in there. There's some amazing stuff there. You've got entities in different places, and your ops person, although you're talking about maybe the role you were just talking about, your office manager, that's probably someone who's assisting ops. But if you've got an ops manager or an ops director, somebody who's making sure, it's a bit like an ERP system, right? You make sure everything's talking to each other. It's the jam in the sandwich, that it's all working properly, that they're up to speed on the requirements of your contracts and your different domains, those types of things. Because your ops director or manager should be someone who's very steadfast and sturdy, but gets it all from that helicopter view and is making sure that it's all linked up. And you as a CEO, yeah, you're still over that. But if you want to grow past the 50, you've got to be delegated. You've got to have your ops manager. You've got to have your FD in place. You've got to have the right kind of senior leadership team that then you can put the blue sky ideas. And that's what Gary's saying, is that you go out and you grow your business because you're the one capable of understanding the market in its totality, having that look at it from that helicopter view and saying, right, okay, these are the bits we need to tweak. But then you've got your people, your senior leaders, they're the people who are going to go and do it.
Yeah, no, I guess all of those are key roles as well. If you're going to, if you see 2 to 3 years down the line, some sort of growth and then trade sale situation, you want to have all of that shit lined up, because those are the skeletons that are going to come out, or they're not going to be there when someone comes in as a business.
You have to succession plan.
Yeah.
Unless you want to stay with the business, you want to de-risk, put some loan notes in it and stay with the business. If any of you are talking about, I want to cash out and walk away from my business, then you have to be someone that the acquirer looks at as not needed in your business, just being a big cost. If you're needed in your business to direct your business and grow your business further, and they've got no one else to step into that position, you're not walking away from anything.
£1 spent today will equate to £10 spent at exit DD. So you might as well do it right first time and minimize any risk or exposure, and the better set of records and references you take. But the importance of doing a really good budget that you always hit, and then bringing it down to 12-week targets to get on trend, that's worth its weight in gold. Because if you can consistently hit that one, when you do a trade sale, you know that when you're putting a number together for your earnout, you're going to hit it. And two, when you're putting a number together for any acquisitor, you've got a proven track record of always hitting your budgets and forecasts. Right? That's worth a couple of extra ticks. There's points there. What do points win? Money.
Anthony, you just basically, your question is saying, if you're not in a financial position to employ someone in each of these departments, but you know that it would help you to work on the business rather than in the business, do you take the risk for the ROI? You don't need to employ people for all those positions. You can outsource those, much of that depending on the size of the business. But if you can get, whether it's a loan, whatever it might be, you to put into your business to give you the breathing space to work on the business, to expand the business rather than in the business, because you're making payroll every month. If you can find a way of doing that, and you know that you can turn that to where it needs to be in 3 to 6 months, then of course you do it, because you're just betting on yourself. And if you can't bet on yourself, who the fuck can you bet on, right? You've got to take that risk. I just believe every time in business, if you play football, if you go into a tackle half-hearted, you're going to get hurt, right? So go full beams, because you can always retract and come backwards. But if you don't ever really make that kind of big splash, and you try and do everything and really, really push your business and get that momentum up, you're always going to look backwards and think, what if? And that's worse. That's what, the cost of the inaction is far more than the cost of being wrong. Got anything else on that? Has anyone else got anything on communication, delegation, models, structures, getting from in to on the business?
Prioritizing. So given that all that's going on at the moment, what's people's sort of super hot priority at the moment? Selling more, getting your NFI up, working on a new business machine, so you're not still reliant upon the same old 10 company names that keep coming up. What are people sort of focusing on at the moment that you could actually spend more time on right now that's going to generate you income and revenue?
So Kish is saying get hands off as a priority. Joseph, the US pound versus the dollar, yeah, that's horrendous at the moment. If you're repatriating money, it's a bloody good time. If you're growing with boots out there in the US at the moment, and you're funding it through your UK business, yeah, that's a lot more painful. But look, it's all relative. If that's what it is, that's what it is. If we're going to be in that region of shit pound versus strong dollar, then yes, it's got more expensive, but it just makes the risk all that more valuable to you in terms of what you're doing. So if you're going to concentrate on these types of things, make sure you go at it 100%. You set your plan, you adhere to it, you do it. Whatever your focus is, just don't do it half-heartedly. It's just not worth it. You're just going to get yourself hurt and damaged, and it will cost you much more than if you put it on full beans and went at it.
It's just worth saying that we've got the highest unemployment figures right now. Nobody's saying any employment. Yeah, employment figures. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Oops. The market still looks super robust. We still got more vacancies than we know what to do with. My biggest advice to everyone right here, right now, is say no to more customers and only work on stuff that you know you're going to fill. Have some sort of quality assurance piece in there, and knock your recruiters back so they keep realizing that they have to go and sell up. Otherwise, you're not going to let them work on stuff. One of my favorite quotes of last week, when I just told someone to say, if someone keeps begging you and just saying, we've got to work at these roles, even though it's only one and it's slightly off rate card, and it's not the best job in the world, but if we fill it, the doors will open. It's like, brilliant. Okay, of course you can work it. I'm just not going to pay you any comms on it. If you still think it's great after that, then we can have a chat, right? And just push people back so they just start selling and being compelling, not selling. So for me at the moment, we'd all be about what can you do today to increase net fee income and broaden your client base, and think about how much time you need to put into that. The good news is you're still allowed to work weekends, so crack on. I do.
Then again, if you find a job you love, you'll never work another day. So it's all good fun, eh?
Yeah.
Right. Anything else? What's that? Oh, it's a thanks. Cheers, Pat. Right. Okay. I think the main thing they look like they want to concentrate on is lunch by their faces. So yeah. All right.
Right.
Cheers,
I'm
guys.
going to see my new Range Rover. Ciao.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
See you guys.